The Morgan Thomas Show. Brought to you by Black's Tire Inc.
Everybody, it's the Morgan Thomas Show. Welcome in. I've got my friend Big Al, Alan Adams, over to the top left, and Houston Burnett down at the bottom. Welcome in, guys. Tonight, we will be talking about the Sugar Bowl coming up, not this Saturday, not this Sunday, but this Friday night. I know it's a late one. I know you guys can't wait for it because I can't wait for it. I'm excited. It's now playoff football in college football, and the Clemson Tigers are in, and they're facing a team that we all love to hate, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes from the Big Ten, the big, giant, powerful 6-0 Buckeyes against the 21-0 Tigers, or at least that's the way it feels, considering the disparity in the schedule. But we will talk about that more because Dabo Swinney was asked about it earlier today. But welcome in. I hope you got to listen to Dabo Swinney's conference this morning. But if you're over on Facebook or YouTube, welcome to the Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al in Houston. It is a podcast every week, Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're here. You're here. We answer our questions. We answer your questions. And we just share the love for a whole entire hour to talk about the Clemson Tigers, the team that is on their way to another national championship, I believe, to win it all again and cement Trevor Lawrence as one of the greatest of all time for doing it as a freshman and now as a junior. But welcome in, Al. I hope you had a good holiday weekend. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and got all of the Star Wars toys. Wait a minute. That was me. I hope you got all of the Clemson Tiger gifts that you ever dreamed of.
Oh, yeah. Christmas always has a Clemson flavor around here for sure, and this was no different this year. Even in a COVID year, this was no different. Had several new Clemson shirts and all kind of good Clemson stuff. So, and may have bought myself a gift or two that was Clemson related. So, good things overall, man. Huge game Friday night. Looking forward to seeing Clemson play Ohio State. It's always it's a good rivalry. It's good that we never lose this game, and I'm hoping we continue that trend here on Friday night.
Let's just make sure you remember that. If you're from Ohio State right now, if you're one of the 70 or 80 fans listening right now, Ohio State has never beaten Clemson. I just want you to know that. They put an O on the 50-yard line at their home stadium to commemorate all of the wins that they've had against Clemson. But thank you again, Alan, for joining us. Down at the bottom, big Houston Burnett. Thank you so much for joining in, Houston. I hope you also had a Merry Christmas and got all of the amazing toys that you could have ever wanted as well.
Well, a lot of the toys went to the newborn daughter I have, but it was still a great Christmas. Kept it chill. Didn't really do anything this year. Kind of great to dial it back. Exhausted and everything like that. To get your energy back up. Since I'm going to be up late most nights, but especially on Friday night, hopefully celebrating another offer for Ohio State.
Al gets in on the chat and says he can't wait to talk about Ohio State tonight, and I am also feeling the same way. If you're over on Facebook, let us know, make it known, put it in the chat, tell us hello. We'll give you a shout out here. If you got any great questions, concerns, or emotional outbursts, let us know. But don't forget, hit the like button and also share it with another Clemson fan. We would love to bring in more Clemson fans for this show every Monday night. Again, 8:30 p.m. If you're over on YouTube, thank you again as well. I'm going to jump over there and look at you. I see you guys, Giggled and Carson. Thank you so much for getting in the chat. If you're also watching over on YouTube, get in the chat as well. Like the video, share it with your friends so that the Tiger fans out there can join us tonight because we have a good one. We're going to talk about the Sugar Bowl as I mentioned before. But before we get into anything, let me tell you about our main show sponsor, and that is Black's Tire Inc., family-owned and operated since 1971. If you need new tires, brakes, alignments, tire repair, or if you're just looking for a friendly professional to help answer your questions, check out Black's Tire Inc., located 1415 East Main Street, Westminster, South Carolina. Give them a call, 864-647-9292, and let them know that Morgan, Allen, and Houston sent you from the Morgan Thomas Show. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Tell Dale and Preston that we said hello and get you some new tires, or maybe just have them look it over, make sure everything's working good. Again, tonight, I wanted to say over on YouTube again, we did not just pass the 1,000 subscriber mark, gentlemen. We are now at 1,030 subscribers. So wow! Last week before we started the show, it was our 2-year anniversary, and we had like 965. Now we have 1,030 fans, and each and every one of you that have subscribed since then, welcome again. Every Monday night we talk Clemson football, and we want to get your thoughts and opinions in as well. So thank you again so much for everybody who's gone over and subscribed, and we're still climbing over on Facebook as well. All right, so let's get in. Question number one that we want to get in and talk about. Well, actually, let's not do question number one. Let's do around the news. Let's do around the news, all right? So today's headlines, gentlemen. The first on the list, Dabo Swinney ranks Ohio State as 11th overall in the coaches poll. Now, this caused a lot of problems because this was one where he was so much different than the rest of the AP voters, from the rest of the coaches voters. And a lot of people felt like on the surface that this was a shot to Ohio State, that there must be something going wrong between Dabo Swinney and Ryan Day, or Dabo Swinney and Ohio State. There must be some sort of conflict, some sort of disagreement or hatred that we don't like, or that we don't understand, that Dabo Swinney doesn't like. Dabo Swinney was asked about it earlier today and came out and said, and I'll paraphrase in this by saying that he did not rank anyone in the top 10 that hadn't played 9 games. That was as simple as that. It wasn't anything more than that. It wasn't anything less. It wasn't a direct shot at Ohio State. He even mentioned the previous year, or the previous time that he did this, where it was controversial, that he left Alabama out and put Ohio State in, and got all the Alabama fans mad. And now we can see, obviously, this is now all the Ohio State fans mad. So I'll pass this around. You can answer it in chat what you think. But the first question is, was this smart of Dabo Swinney to apparently put up bulletin board, quote unquote, material for the Ohio State players a week before the game, or just a few days before the game? I'll start with you, Big Al.
Well, I got to tell you, it sure caught a lot of Clemson fans off guard, because this is not something Dabo Swinney typically does. And what I'll say is that I think people are blowing it out of proportion, which of course, that was to be expected. When you throw somebody at number 11 just outside the top 10 under Coastal Carolina, it seems like he's taking a shot at you for sure. But what I think is Swinney's just being genuine, like he has been all year. He doesn't think they deserve to be there because they haven't played enough games, and that's a fair perspective. And we talked about this, I think, on the show last week. I personally think Dabo knows that they're a better team, and I think he knows that they've got something for Ohio State, and that they're the superior team and can win this game. So I don't think he really cares whether he riles them up or not. I don't think it really matters. They can talk about all they want. Oh, he disrespected us. We're going to play harder. They're not going to play any harder. You're playing hard because you're in the college football playoff. Okay. Will it give you an edge for a play or two? Yeah, maybe. You've got this big plan. You're going to come out and be aggressive. But I think it was Mike Tyson that always said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I think that's kind of might be what happened on Friday night. Might be time for Clemson defense to wake them up a little bit. I sure hope so. That's what I want to see. That's what I hope we'll see from Venables and company. So should be good. But yeah, I think people are blowing it out of proportion. He's just saying what he said all year. It's not anything different. It's not anything new. And it's a fair perspective. I don't think he necessarily means that they're not a top 10 team in the country. He's just saying it's not easy enough to judge that right now because they haven't played enough games, and I think that's fair.
Houston, I'll pass it to you. Is this bulletin board material if you were Ryan Day?
Well, look, anything that Dabo does lately in the last 5 years, he could breathe the wrong way, and it could be bulletin board material or controversial or anything. So it's not surprising that he did this. I agree with Alan. I think he's confident in his team, and he's confident. He laid it out perfectly of why he did this. It's nothing against Ohio State. He ranked Texas A&M in the top 4 because they played more games, and he was clear. You're punishing Florida, you're punishing Texas A&M, you're punishing Cincinnati, and they've played more games, and they had their conferences had their collective ducks in a row to play more games this year, despite all the COVID restrictions and everything. And then Ohio State benefited from literally the name on their chest, Ohio State, and the Big Ten's incompetent leadership and everything, and still were able to change their rules and everything to get into the playoffs. So he understands that, and he's just being honest about it. And I don't see anything wrong. You can call it bulletin board material all you want, but if Clemson comes out and smacks him in the mouth on Friday night, it ain't gonna matter.
I'm gonna try to get up the screen here and show you his top 5 here. Let's see if I can get it on the screen for you, or his top 11, excuse me, because that's what they put up. Bear with me here, because I wanna show the fans here on the screen. If you're on a podcast, you're probably not getting this at all, but maybe we'll delete it out. Hopefully we will. But I wanted to show you a photo here of Dabo Swinney, graphic, if you will, of his. Here we go. All right, so go to graphic of his coaches poll ballot. Number 1, Alabama Crimson Tide. I think most people understand that. That makes pretty much sense. I mean, as far as Alabama, how they have played, who they have played against. Clemson, number 2. I think that makes sense considering they beat Notre Dame. He put Notre Dame number 3, so he didn't really knock them down much at all after losing to Clemson. And I think it goes back to kind of what we have talked about too on our show, is that, you make it all the way to the championship game. You shouldn't be really penalized too bad for playing, the best team in your conference, right? Mm-hmm. Texas A&M up there at 4, and he mentioned in his conference that he felt like Texas A&M deserved it because of the amount of games they played, and some of those games that may have been lost or not lost weren't even played in a team that only plays 6 games, for example, or doesn't play the same amount of games. But then you got Florida Gators there, another team that obviously lost to Texas A&M, so they're right underneath there. Georgia Bulldogs, which, I don't know. I always want to rank Georgia high, but, you never know what you're going to get with them. Cincinnati up there, Oklahoma as well. Again, I thought that was an issue as well. We talked about this last week. Oklahoma being a conference champion and being left out is one of the reasons why I would maybe like to see a playoff get expanded. Then Ohio State as the runner-up for the Big 12. And then Coastal Carolina, 10 overall, put them up there as their group of 5, until last week, unfortunately, group of 5 undefeated. But and then finally Ohio State at number 11. I'm looking this, and you can tell me what you think in the chat. So let's go check over on the chat and see what everybody says over here. Over on Facebook, we've got this is a Dabo quote from September. I don't think his number 11 is the opposite. Shoot, in a year like this, no, it's a crazy year. Who knows how many games anybody's going to have. You have some of the best teams, coaches in the league, and it's not their fault. They've worked their butt off. So Bill gets in, and he's talking about the earlier comment that he made, that some of the professionals out there, some of the media are saying that he's kind of contradicting himself, saying that earlier, it's going to be hard to get in any of these games, and now he's kind of going against it. I will say that I do feel like he kind of went against it, but I will say in the sense that we don't know how the other team, I mean, when you look at it both, there is such a huge disparity in the amount of games played. I would say that, it's okay to kind of reassess those thoughts from September. I think with everybody, that Big Ten would play earlier than they did. They waited so long, and then they didn't give themselves any buffers, and so they had no chances. But Houston, I'll get you first.
Yeah, so this comment was probably made, if it's in from September, this was when the Pac-12 and the Big Ten had already canceled. So the reason that they're not mentioning a minimum number of games is this is fresh. When the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 said that they're looking to play the season. So we didn't know. Nobody knew if this was going to be something that would turn into Clemson only being able to play 6 games, or would there actually be a full season. Well, it turns out the Big 12 and the ACC and the SEC were able to play the majority of their schedules. Well, there were some hiccups along the way, but nothing to the point where anybody had to cancel their seasons, nothing like that, to the point where the Big 10 and the Pac-12 reassessed their decision and came in midway through the year and said, we're going to start playing. And I think that's his point of it's not a contradiction as much as it is. I think the Big 10 and the Pac-12 dialing back what they were saying of trying to be the bastions of health and we're going to charge this canceling the season, and then all of a sudden they're walking it back and changing the rules and trying to make sure the darling Ohio State's able to make it in to the playoff despite should not being able to make their own conference title game. I think that's where this is. It's not a minimum games problem. It's not anything like that. I think you're taking the context of the conversation from September when it was a totally different ball game
Right.
compared to now, and I think that's you can't compare those statements verbatim where we are now.
Well, I think it's a good point because RJ Young, who is a guy on 24/7 on Fox Sports and on YouTube as well, guy that I watch and try to take pointers from, he mentioned that it's tough for the media to accept that because fans and the media prefer for you to, pick a point on the hill and die on it. And I know that you guys know the same way, being in this kind of quote unquote spotlight on a podcast, people watching. If you go wishy-washy, especially if you get on the radio with Walt Deptula, if you start being wishy-washy, you run out really quick. You get called out really quick. So I would say that it does, in the media's eye, they don't like that when you go back. But I mean, it is two different situations. Al, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Houston was 100% right. I mean, look, it's funny how Ohio State fans, hate the fact that he's contradicting himself, or all the media's saying he's contradicting himself or whatever, but they don't care that the Big Ten changed the rules, 8 times along the way so that Ohio State could get in. They couldn't care less about that. They couldn't care less that he said we weren't playing and now we are playing, that you have to play 6 games. Well, not anymore, that you have to play 6 games. I mean, and you have to wait 21 days too for your players to come back. Just kidding, 17 because we need these guys back. Okay, it's a complete clown show. They've been a clown show all year, and it just continues. It's an embarrassment really that they're even in the playoff, and I'm not even sitting here saying they're not a top 4 team. I don't know if they're a top 4 team because I don't think they've played enough games. So I guess we'll find out on Friday whether they're a top 4 team or not. But just based on how this season went, they had no business being in the playoff, whether they're a top 4 team or not, just because they didn't play enough games. So I'm with Dabo on that one for sure. But it's Ohio State. They get incredible recruits every year. They are a good team for sure. It's not that they don't belong, like they physically can't play in this college football playoff, because they can, because they have good players and they recruit well. And that's just the way it goes. They're always near the top and they're always competing. But it's just the way things shook out and the way the circumstances, shook out this year, that they shouldn't have been allowed in.
And Dabo Sweeney said right is right, and I agree. I don't think it's fair to have teams playing 10, 11, 12 games while this team is playing 6, 7. It doesn't make sense. You're going to if they do win it all, Al, we're going to have an 8-0 champion with a Texas A&M team that could be 10-1 or something like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, like with these teams that could be only one loss, with an Alabama team that could have one loss, a Clemson team that could have 2 losses at that point if Ohio State made it all the way through. But it just doesn't make it just won't make much sense if you look at it in that sense. And Ohio State, a lot of fans have been saying, well, here's a question for you. So is Ohio State, is it better for them that they haven't played 6 games? Because I'm hearing it both ways. So I'll start with Houston on this. Is it better for Ohio State that they haven't played 6 games, or is it a disadvantage? Because what I'm seeing from some people is saying that it may be a disadvantage because they haven't had time to gel, to find their identity, to get on the same page on offense and defense, to understand each other, understand the men that are standing next to them shoulder to shoulder. Or on the flip side, maybe they even weak as well because they've had not only 6 games, but they've had like a game off, a game, a week off, a game, a week off, a game. So they've had a lot of space in between. So maybe it's that they're not going to be ready for this game. Maybe that's why Clemson is the favorite, according to Vegas right now, a touchdown favorite. Is it that, or do you lean more on it actually helps them because they're fresher, as all the South Carolina fans like to remind Clemson that they don't play anybody, so they're always got fresh legs. So 6 games obviously give you fresh legs.
Well, don't listen to South Carolina fans. Their new coach just rehired Mike Bobo, so I don't really take any of their opinions. I don't really take them seriously. But here's the thing: Ohio State, and this is such a weird year. One could say, "Oh, the time off is good," but I feel like in a year like this, where you've had so much time off, and then you have so much start and stop and start and stop, you don't really know. And here's the other part about Ohio State: who have they beaten that is like a Clemson level, a Notre Dame level team this year? You can't really say it. Like Northwestern, No, Indiana is a good team,
Yeah.
but they're not Notre Dame. And both of those teams gave Ohio State fits. Now, look, I could be wrong, and it could be an advantage, and Ohio State throw for 5 million yards, and they
Yep.
win the game. But from what I see, there's a lot of problems that Ohio State hasn't had a chance to address yet because they haven't had the games to address it and adjust yet. And you're about to throw them into the biggest game of the year against the best opponent they've played with a lot of holes. I know we'll talk about it later in the show, but there are issues on their defense, no doubt about it. They have issues on their offense compared to last year. There's no doubt about that. Whereas you would have 6 extra games, or even in a year like this, if you started on time, 4 or 5 extra games to work out those kinks or figure out something. Like even with Clemson struggling to run the ball, well, you get Travis Etienne the ball by throwing him the ball. Well, you haven't seen the adjustment from Ohio State, and that's why I think it's a disadvantage.
Yeah, look, first of all, on the Mike Bobo thing, like they had to hire Mike Bobo because they need the quarterback savior Gunnar Stockton to come in, okay? That's the only reason Mike Bobo was retained, and everybody knows it, all right? But as far as the Ohio State thing goes, look, I personally think that you can only look at it as an advantage. I understand the wanting to gel with each other and everything, but their offense isn't the problem. They can score points, okay? The reason they didn't score points the last couple of games is because they didn't have Olave as one of their best receivers. I think is their best receiver. I think that's one of their main issues. So I think the time off. Look, you avoid injury. You're getting rest in between games. There's not as much tape for Clemson to watch as to what you're doing. And the fact, you were talking about gelling. Most of these are the same guys, with the exception of J.K. Dobbins, and they still got running backs that are awesome. Okay, so I don't think the whole gelling thing is a big deal because they're an offensive team. Their defense is not any good. It's not the fact that they haven't gelled. I just don't think the talent's there like it has been. So I don't necessarily think that's an advantage at all or a disadvantage for them to not be able to gel. I just think it's the fact that they have what they have. They've had to play less time, which is a huge advantage. There's less film for Clemson to watch, which is another advantage. I think there's definitely some on paper advantages to only playing 6 games throughout the year for sure. But that's kind of my take on it.
Good discussion. Got people in here. Hart, Al, John, all getting in. John says it's a disadvantage because they haven't had a chance to develop, like Morgan says. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Yeah, nice one to pick to read.
Think about it, though. Through 6 games, Trevor Lawrence wasn't playing the best to his abilities. And I would say, yeah, Trevor Lawrence obviously has gotten better as the game goes, as the year's gone on. I think all players should if they continue to gel with each other. But if you're like me and Alan, we can hit the basketball court and we're gelling immediately. I mean, we're on the same page. Let me inbound the ball, and then I just pass it to Allen. That's all I got to do, baby. I don't forget that. It doesn't matter. 2 years, 3 years apart, pass it to Allen. That's all I got to do. And don't pass it to Perry if you're watching Perry. We don't pass it to you. But before we get into another question for you, Big, we're going to talk about Ohio State and Clemson's depth chart. Going to have them up on the screen, so hang tight real quick. If you're watching in, we're going to have that. But before we do that, let me tell you about the Charleston Sports Pub. Speaking of Perry Freeman, the Charleston Sports Pub of Clemson, downtown Greenville, downtown Clemson, 359 College Avenue, Clemson, South Carolina. If you're in the upstate, if you're in Clemson, go check them out. Tiger Legends dine there. We dine there. Go check them out. Charleston Sports Pub of Clemson. They also have one downtown Greenville, and they have 4 locations at the lower part of the state, as you would expect around Charleston. So go check them out there. We appreciate their support. Not only that, we appreciate the support from the Tiger Sports Shop, tigersports.com. We don't just dress for success, we TS for success at tigersports.com. And I apologize for that. I guess I had some music going. Sorry about that. Okay, so tigersports.com. We don't just dress for success, we TS for success. Tigersports.com. Go check them out, and I really appreciate that. Let's get back on the screen here. If I blew out your eardrums, apologize. But that must have been from our dance-off that we had last week, guys. If you didn't know, if you guys show out tonight, we will dance for you. I will just let you know that right now. If you want to get in over on Super Chat, you can as well over on YouTube. Thank you so much. Anton, and then Tiger Pulse, 1979, Expose. Thank you so much. Expose says, if Fields gets knocked out of the game, who's their backup quarterback? I don't expect there not to be a Justin Fields. I guess we all assumed Justin Fields will be playing, but I have no idea. I think it's Joe Burrow, right? Isn't he still backup? No dancing until Friday night at midnight, Tiger Paw says. Yeah, I would agree too. We're going to hold on to that for sure. Maybe we should live stream the dance, the after party dance party. That's what we should all do, and just have all the fans get in and dance for us, but with us. But all right, so let's talk about here's the next question. Who will have a big impact in Ohio State versus Clemson? Now, this is specific players, and I'm going to pull up the Sugar Bowl offensive depth charts. Might be a little bit blurry. I pulled it off of Google, but we'll go through it. So here's the depth charts, and it looks a little bit different from a year ago. A lot different, actually. But I'll run through it real quick. Just the starters, as you can see on the screen. Left tackle, Jackson Carman. Left guard, Mac Bockhorst. Center, Cade Stewart. Right guard, Will Putnam. Right tackle, Jordan McFadden. All look similar there to what Clemson's had all year. Tight end, Braden Galloway. Wide receiver, Cornell Powell. Quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Running back, Travis Etienne. Wide receiver, Amari Rogers. Wide receiver, E.J. Williams. As you can see there for the wide receivers. Frank Ladson is listed as a backup there. No Joseph Ngata. I see on the screen. Do have Brandon Spector there as well. And Joe, Will Brown, Will Sweeney as backups there as well. On the Ohio State side, Thayer Munford. Left tackle to right tackle, Thayer Munford, Harry Miller, Josh Myers, Wyatt Davis, Nicholas Petit-Fier, and tight end Luke Farrell. Wide receiver Chris Olave, Julian Fleming backing him up. By the way, you guys remember Julian Fleming. We looked into him in the recruiting trail. Clemson was really pushing for him, 5-star guy, freshman, true freshman there. So backup number 4. Quarterback Justin Fields. By the way, there's your backups. Gunnar Hoke, Jack Miller, C.J. Stroud. And then you've got running back Master Teague the third as their starting running back, but you got Trey Sermon. Don't forget about him right behind him. Wide receiver Jameson Williams, and then Garrett Wilson up there on the screen. So, guys, any of those guys on offense, we'll stick to just offense. You let us know in the chat what you think. Any of those guys that you think will be the biggest impact for Clemson and Ohio State on offense. I'll start with you, Alan.
So, as far as Clemson's concerned, I think, man, gosh, you could pick anybody. I'm going to go with Cornell Powell here as one of my guys. I think it's about time he has another one of those monstrous games that he was having when he had like 2 or 3 in a row earlier in the season. You know, Amari Rogers, you kind of know what you get from Amari. He's always there every game. I feel like they're gonna do their best to kind of take him away, and I think it's time for Powell to shine, make some one-on-one plays. And look, he's done it. He's done it this year. It's been fantastic to really see him come out of his shell, be the guy we expected him to be when we recruited him. So I'm really looking for him to have an impact this game. I also like E.J. Williams for Clemson as well. You know, he showed a little bit last week. He did drop one pass that, you know, could have been a first down near the goal line. We had to kick a field goal. But I look for E.J. Williams to only get better. I mean, he's gonna get better in the weight room. You know, with a year in the offseason and whatnot. So he's gonna be really good. He's done a good job as a freshman. You know, stepping up when we have all these receivers out. It's been kind of a crazy year. But as far as Ohio State concerned, I think Olave's the guy. I think he's their guy on offense. I think he's the receiver you got to watch out for. He was the one they were gunning for last time when they when Nolan Turner picked him off in the end zone. You know, they were just not on the same page. But he's the guy they were looking for, and he's made some plays. I talked about him being similar to Zay Flowers for Boston College last week. I think they're a similar type receiver, very dynamic, makes plays. That's what they do, and they almost do it every game. They're very consistent. And Olave should be healthy. He's been off for the past couple of weeks for COVID protocols, and now that he gets back early, I'm sure he's going to be ready to rock and roll.
Yep. For Clemson, you stole mine. I was going to say E.J. Williams, but fear not, I have some others. I think the year has been building for a big game for the combination of Braden Galloway and Davis Allen. Mm-hmm. We've utilized the tight end just enough to people say, man, we should utilize the tight end more. Yeah. Now we're in the playoffs, and I think they're going to do that. If you remember last year, Braden Galloway didn't necessarily have a ton of receptions against Ohio State. I don't know if he was able to be back for that, but I know his presence was known early in that national championship game, and then we strayed away from him for some reason with that early pass over the middle to Braden Galloway in the national championship game last year. I think they're going to be thrown to the tight ends and also to E.J. Williams as well. They're going to be trying to cover Cornell Powell and Amari Rogers, but I think you'll have some shots over the middle, and that pass defense for Ohio State is rough. So I think you'll have opportunities there. And then for Ohio State, it goes back to their wide receivers. Both Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson are holdovers from last year. Julian Fleming is a Justin Ross receiver type that they'll have coming back as well. So, if Clemson's able to make Ohio State one-dimensional and take away the run game, it's not a done deal. They have 3 talented wide receivers, and our secondary does have some issues. However, making Ohio State one-dimensional will always be a problem. Anytime you do that, it's a problem. But those 3 wide receivers are very capable, and I look for them to try to get them the ball early and often.
Yeah, for me, I think for Clemson, on the Clemson side of the ball, I'm really looking to, I'm going to steal this one from Expose on YouTube. I'm really looking to Amari Rogers. I think that they can expose the fact there's no Damon Arnett, the fact there's no Jeffrey Okudah. There's those guys that are gone. Now, there still is Sean Wade, but he's got to be guarding somebody else. And they can move Amari Rogers around the field. And Amari showed, man, I watched the Fiesta Bowl on ACC Network. I tweeted about it over the weekend. And with less than 2 minutes to go, the connection that Trevor Lawrence had with Amari Rogers was just so beautiful. I mean, it brought them one play and yard after the catch. Amari Rogers' X factor is the fact that you cannot tackle him around the legs. He will bounce off of you. He is a Travis Etienne type. Try to hit him on the hips, try to hit them around the legs, and he is going to get off of you. You have to actually wrap him up. And he is just so hard to tackle. He's so good at bouncing out to the outside, getting yards after the catch. In that final drive, that game-winning drive, that go-ahead drive, Amari Rogers had a huge catch and yard after the catch to get within field goal range, and it was kind of a sigh of relief, like, okay, great. As long as BT Potter doesn't screw this up. Well, thankfully, like 1 or 2 plays later, Travis Etienne just waltzed right into the end zone on a screen-type play to the left side. And so it really opens up the rest of the game when you have Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne doing good, but you also cannot forget about the key guy in that veteran guy in Amari Rogers. I want to see him do great. We know that it's almost the time, he's almost done. He's going to be leaving. These guys are going to be no longer Clemson Tigers after this. It's going to be a huge game for these guys. I look for them to take it very serious and to be on the same page with those two. Anybody you can be on the same page with, it's Trevor Lawrence, the one of the best player on the field. And I think Amari Rogers is going to benefit from that and his skill to break tackles. So I like to see Amari Rogers on that side. But again, I have Trevor Lawrence, Amari Rogers, Travis Etienne on the offensive side. Those 2 guys go hand in hand. If Trevor's doing great in the running game, Travis is going to also do great in the running game, and they're just going to kill you that way too. I don't see much different from what happened in the Fiesta Bowl. I think Clemson can still get going quickly. Hopefully they get going more quickly than they did last year in the 16-0 start. I think that they should probably do better than that. On the Ohio State side, I keep going back to Olave and Justin Fields and that connection there. I think that Olave is as Ryan Day said, 4 days without really eating a solid meal because he was so upset about taking the wrong route. That's going to be in his mind. He's going to be wanting to do better, wanting to prove to the nation that he can be on the same page with Justin Fields. Justin Fields on the other end, wanting to prove that he can get over the hump and beat Trevor Lawrence head-to-head. And so I look to see that matchup there too. But again, the running game as well, and we'll talk about that in my second question because they're not the scariest players that I have. But we'll get into that after we go through the defense real quick. Let's get on the defense. Let me pull this up real quick. All right, so on the defense, you've got on Clemson's defense, KJ Henry, Justin Maskell sharing the defensive end. You got Tyler Davis, defensive tackle, Brian Bresee, Jordan Williams, and Niles Pickney, a defensive tackle, Miles Murphy, defensive end, Mike Jones Jr., James Skalski, Balin Spector at linebacker, DK and Mario Goodrich, cornerback, Landon Zanders, Nolan Turner, Sheridan Jones, Andrew Booth at cornerback there. A lot of sharing time there on the defensive line and on the cornerback side of things. On the Ohio State side of things, you got Jonathan Cooper at left end, Tommy Tagai, I want to say, defensive tackle, Haskell Garrett, defensive tackle, Tyreek Smith right in, Pete Werner, big time guy, senior guy there. Tuff Borland, great name, by the way, middle linebacker Tuff Borland. Baron Browning, a 5-star SLB there. Sean Wade, we know, the guy that had the targeting last year. He's real bitter about what happened last year, getting kicked out of the game. He wants to know he wants to prove to the nation what he can do as well. Marcus Williamson, who's taken over at cornerback, and Sevin Banks, who's also taken over for cornerback for two guys that went high in the NFL draft, and then Marcus Hooker there for strong safety. I have the Ohio State special teams, but it was kind of misaligned there. I didn't mean to put them up there. But again, that's the Clemson defense and the Ohio State offense. I'll start with Houston this time. Anybody on those two squads that stick out to you as impact players that fans should watch out for?
I'm always going to say for Clemson, Tyler Davis since his return. Ever since his return from the to the Pittsburgh game, Clemson looks different. They play different with Tyler Davis on the field. They're a more complete defense. You see what they look like versus Notre Dame without Tyler Davis and with him. And it's two completely different ball games. It's not just Trevor Lawrence, but that defense. And Skalski and a lot of other players, but Tyler Davis is the anchor of that defensive line, along with Brzee. It frees Brzee up a lot, and you have a more developed Brian Brzee to be able to do what he can do with Tyler Davis. I think he's the most dangerous player on that defense. I think for Ohio State, I'll say Baron Browning. He's the most athletic, freakish player on that defense and can cause a lot of havoc. Shaun Wade's very talented too. And Tuff Borland's a very good linebacker. But nobody on that defense, ever since losing Chase Young, really jumps out at me and scares me. Chase Young had that Jadeveon Clowney factor where he's in the backfield or at least is going to cause problems for whoever is the offensive lineman matched up with him. I don't see anybody like that on this defense. It's actually quite opposite this year to what they had. But if I had to pick one, I'll pick Baron Browning.
Yeah, I'm taking Shaun Wade. Houston mentioned him. And Morgan mentioned him earlier about the, he got the targeting penalty last year. He's gonna be ready to rock and roll. He's got, some amends to make for this game. He's gonna be hot and ready to go. So I'm definitely picking Shaun Wade for Ohio State. And for Clemson, I'm taking Skalski. Houston, we've been talking about Tyler Davis and his impact all year, and you're 100% right. It's just amazing what he does for that line. Skalski, they like to call him the quarterback of the defense. They call him that for a reason. He's getting everybody lined up. He's figuring out the play. He's so good at diagnosing plays and getting after it. Man, he had a great game against Notre Dame. He was blitzing in there like crazy. Kirk Herbstreit was calling him a maniac or something like that. It was a lot of fun to listen to them talk about him because he has such a huge impact. And you could tell when he was out of the game, when he was hurt, you could tell the drop off, and it was huge, without a doubt. But Skalski is going to be huge in this game. I think he's kind of our impact guy. You could go with several players for sure, but he's the guy I'm riding with this time.
Yeah, I agree with you guys as well. I'm looking at the list here, and some people are talking about what is the comparison between last year and this year. Clemson actually has more players to replace from last year than Ohio State does, but Ohio State has some key players that were high first-round draft picks, second-round guys, third-round guys in that secondary. And again, Chase Young, defensive tackle, defensive end, they don't have a replacement for him, which makes me feel great. But they do have, I believe, a all Big Ten player in, I had it up just real quick. Let me see. In Haskell Garrett, he was one of their all Big Ten players there. So you got to be careful with him on that defensive line. So when I look at it, that's what I'm saying is another guy that keeps sticking out to me is Baron Browning. I don't think he did as well last year against Travis Etienne. Etienne got in space and blew by him. This is a 5-star guy, 6'3", 240, graduate now. You don't see many 5-star graduates sticking around, but strong side linebacker, I want to see the battle between Browning and Travis Etienne. Can Travis expose him again? Because there were plenty of times where I saw Etienne getting into the end zone and Browning was sucking wind. Number 5 on the defense there for Ohio State. So I'm looking at him to see what he can do. And then again, Haskell Garrett. Some people in the chat are also saying Garrett as well. So keep a lookout for those two guys and how they can do. Again, Pete Werner, again, another Big Ten guy, all Big Ten guy, their leader on their defense. And Browning also has been having some issues with COVID as well. I'm interested to see what he can do. He didn't play the last game. I'm interested to see how he'll be coming into this game. On Clemson's side, I agree with Alan. Skalski, just the difference that him and Tyler Davis had in Notre Dame round 1 versus Notre Dame round 2. They've got to be on your list. They've got to be guys to watch out for. I am curious to see what the cornerbacks can do against Chris Olave and you said Garrett Wilson, right, Houston? So I'm interested to see what the cornerbacks can do. I am a little bit concerned about Joseph Charleston. How is he going to do if he's replacing, Nolan Turner? By the way, that secondary last year was DK A.J. Terrell, Kayvon Wallace, and Tanner Muse. It's a big difference this year. Big change. So a lot of new faces out there. Turner won't be there until at the second half because of that targeting call. But so Joseph Charleston's going to have to step up. So you got some youngsters there. And then Landon Zanders, we'll see what he can do in a big-time game. This will be his first playoff appearance, I believe, as well. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what he can do as a starter on that defense. Let me know what you think. Big Mick says he thinks that Malcolm Green's going to be at safety and going to be lighting it up as well. Again, Green's stock has been going through the roof there as well. Another guy whose stock's been going through the roof that we hadn't talked about yet, one guy that's kind of got snubbed, Brian Bresee, made the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Myles Murphy arguably has better stats on a piece of paper. Now, I know it's different, defensive tackle, defensive end. What are your thoughts on that? Myles Murphy not even on the third team. Now, I know there are a lot of really good defensive ends in the ACC, so that may be part of the issue. But Myles Murphy been having a wonderful year. Honorable mention by the ACC, so don't let me get that wrong. He definitely was mentioned there, but I think Myles Murphy could have easily been the ACC Player of the Year or Freshman Player of the Year, just alongside, maybe it'd be co-Player of the Year alongside of Brian Bresee. Start with you, Al.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Murphy did get snubbed kind of in this one. The stats are there for sure, and I get it. You know, stats are way easier for a defensive end than they are for a defensive tackle. And Brian Bresee, he's the player we thought he was going to be. He just hadn't been able to show it this year because half the year he's been playing without Tyler Davis. The other half he's getting double teamed. It is what it is. He's playing a defensive tackle, and a lot of these games that they've been playing a contained type game, especially against Notre Dame. That's what they wanted to do. They're not trying to rush upfield and get those big plays and get those big sacks because they want to contain him and make him nervous in the pocket. And that's kind of the way it's been. But hey, they're both deserving players. I just think if you were really looking on paper, I think Murphy was the kind of, that should have got the nod this year. But that's all good. I think you're both going to see their names very frequently here in the future.
Yeah, I'm fine with Murphy. Look, I want him to get the awards, but for now, not getting an award going into your biggest 2-game stretch of the season is totally fine. Go earn your money. Go earn your paycheck early, and go ahead and get your draft stock going in these next 2 games.
Talk about a guy that has some bulletin board material being left off of that list. As good as he's been playing, I want to see Murphy out there destroying people, and I want to see. Chat's also saying Blake gets in and says that he wants to see Booth and Kendrick on the field the same time as Murphy, Davis, Bresee, and Henry are going to be pretty nasty for sure. I agree. I think this defense, now that they're healthy and they're back, is going to be very difficult for Clemson, for Ohio State to manage. There are differences out there. I think Clemson has a lot. I think Clemson has upgrades. I wouldn't necessarily say maybe an upgrade at A.J. Terrell, but I don't necessarily think it was a downgrade to get Andrew Booth or Sheridan Jones. No. I think there's a downgrade. Would you say there's a downgrade in – I don't think there's a downgrade in defensive line for Clemson. I don't think there's really a downgrade at linebacker either, because I think that Mike Jones is better than Chad Smith, even though I love Chad Smith, but Balin Spector, excuse me, I guess, maybe on that side. I guess Mike Jones maybe not as good as Isaiah Simmons, but he's a different kind of player. What do you think about the secondary? We previously Kayvon Wallace, Tanner Muse, now Charleston, Turner / Landon Zanders. What do you think, Houston?
To me, I think there's a group of the secondary that if you're able to find a mixture, have them on the field of Turner, Green, Booth, and DK, that is your sweet spot right there. I think the ones that aren't, like Mario Goodrich, a good role player to get in there. Sheridan Jones is still developing. Landon Zanders, I feel like, is good blitzing. And Joseph Charleston is still also developing. But I think the 4 that are your 4 studs, the guys that you want in the field, are DK, Andrew Booth, Malcolm Green, and Nolan Turner. And I think that would give you the best shot to win, because those are the 4 guys that bring it, most every play. But then again, I feel like this is a good time to shine for those others. If Joseph Charleston really is a starter, he's had moments where he's looked really good. I feel like we're getting to a point now with our depth in our secondary to where it's becoming more of in years past, the secondary might be more of a liability. We're starting to get better. The Clemson is starting. You're starting to see the growth in the secondary, but I still think there are a couple little spots, a couple players that need to grow and develop where there's 4 studs on your defense, and you should trot them out there to start the game.
Yeah, Houston's not telling me anything I don't know. I've been talking about Green since we recruited him. Okay, I love this kid. I think he's going to be such a superstar at Clemson. I really wish they could play him back there at safety. I really do. I wish it could be him and Turner back there at safety. And maybe, that he's got versatility for sure. They recruited him to play several different positions, the nickel position, cornerback, safety, whatever. And he's been on the field a good bit, especially these last few games. I'd love to see him back there. I think he's a stud. I think he's a smart player. I think he loves to hit. I love the way he looks at the quarterback. He's watching the ball a good bit of the time, which is a pet peeve of mine, of course, when people don't get their head around, that. But I love that. I love everything we have back there. I think Booth is an incredible athletic specimen. We saw that interception he had where he comes over and robs one from, who was it, Venables, maybe Tyler Venables or something. I can't even remember who it was, but he just Superman flew in front of him and snagged the ball. It's just incredible athleticism, and he's built like a first round corner, and I hope he continues to play that way.
And I'm thinking, like, some people are saying, what do you think about the deep ball for Clemson's secondary? I really don't think, I know that they have issues, but I don't think it's necessarily as bad as Tanner Muse, who really liked to cheat a lot. He wasn't cheating as bad as TJ Green cheating. I think TJ Green's cheating, he cheated so much on spying on the quarterback that it lost them a national championship game, to be honest with you. In 2015, lost them a national championship game. One of the players. Now, also with Mackenzie Alexander being hurt. But TJ Green cheated way too much. Tanner Muse was like, TJ Green 2.0, didn't cheat as bad, but still loved to rather get a sack on somebody or a big hit. Same thing with Kayvon Wallace. So I think these guys are a little bit more interested, especially Nolan Turner, with the fact that he has so many interceptions. He's interested more in the coverage play, and same thing with Green as well. I think Landon Sanders, is more of the hard-hitting type guy that you're used to back there. But I'm not necessarily saying it's necessarily a downgrade. Different kind of team for sure. If you look at the 2019 team versus Clemson 2020, it's a big difference really on defense. So I'm interested to see what Brent Venables can dial up. I think they do well there for sure, even though Ryan Day would like to say it doesn't have to do with the talent. It has to do with the fact that Brent Venables cheats and steals signs, and he's been doing it for 25 years. But Ryan Day, that's bogus, and that's Bush League for somebody, and amateurish for somebody to do that 4 days before a game. You're talking about stealing signs. This isn't the Astros here. This isn't balls and strikes, okay? You're going to steal signs and get all 11 players to do exactly what you tell them to do in moments of nanoseconds? Come on. Let's be real. What, some grad assistant that barely can pass biology up there feeding signs to Brent Venables so he can beat the best offenses in the nation consistently for 6-7 years? No, come on, get out of here with that. By the way, if anybody's stealing your signs, you got to get a better graphic designer, because your boards with the graphics are bad if you got somebody stealing signs like that. So, but I digress. I will die on that hill. I will die on that hill, because I think it's just another excuse from Ohio State losers out there. And losers, the head coach. That's who I'm talking about. Let me get off that. All right. Let me tell you about Daniel Weber State Farm, 518 College Avenue, Suite 190, 864-722-9083. Daniel Weber State Farm, a Clemson graduate class of 2011, fourth generation Clemson graduate, and he gives you auto, home, property, business, life, and health insurance products, also banking and annuities as well. If you look at Daniel Weber State Farm Insurance Agent on Google, tons of great reviews, 50 reviews, 4.8 overall, 5 stars on Google. I love the office. Katie is my favorite of all of them. She has the best smile. Every time I walk in the door, she has all the answers for me. Daniel Weber has an amazing office there. I'm very happy with State Farm. Katie is amazing. My wife and I insure everything from State Farm. Daniel's team is the best team. Hey, it's Clemson. It's Clemson, South Carolina. Why would they not be the best team? Everything in Clemson is the best, and we only support the best, and we thank you for supporting us, Daniel Weber State Farm. Also, I want to tell you about Heating and Cooling Services, Inc. Alan's going to get you that one.
Absolutely. Heating Cooling Services, Inc., serving Anderson County and surrounding areas since 1980. Heating Cooling Services, Inc. is your residential and commercial comfort expert. Anything from preventative maintenance of your home HVAC system to overhauling a commercial chiller or anything in between. If you want to breathe easier and be nice and cool in your home or business this summer, or warm and cozy in your home or business this winter, give Heating Cooling Services, Inc. a call. Their number is 864-224-7655. You're going to want to talk to Mark or Jason Trammell. Again, that number is 864-224-7655. Good people, they'll take good care of you. Tell them the Morgan Thomas Show sent you.
Thanks for that, Big Al. All right, so last couple of questions, and we'll wrap it up for tonight. The next thing up is looking back at the depth chart that we talked about. There's some more clickbaitable topics for you, but clickbaitable. I don't know. Is that a word? I'm not really sure.
I like it. Clickbaitable sounds good to me.
You like clickbaitable? I like it
Sure.
too. So let's start off with Clemson's offense. We'll put our minds in Tony Elliott. Now, be careful. Be careful here. All right, because I know we have certain thoughts about Tony Elliott depending on how the sun is shining on the Clemson Tigers. I know. But let's put our minds into Tony Elliott right now. How is Clemson's offense going to attack Ohio State? So let's be the armchair quarterback section. Put it in the chat what you think. How will Clemson's offense attack the Ohio State defense? I'll start it off by saying, again, I think it's the connection there between Trevor Lawrence and Amari Rodgers in the passing game. But I also think just continue to go back to that well that worked so well in the ACC championship game, that worked so well in the Fiesta Bowl 2019, and that is get Trevor Lawrence out in space, let him run the ball, let him get the running game going, let him get close to 100 yards. Trevor Lawrence gets 100 yards in this game, no way you can lose, because Trevor gets 100, ETN gets over 100, everybody starts getting great catches. EJ Williams, Amari Rodgers going to be doing great because everybody's worried about Trevor Lawrence. They can't stop him. I'm looking at Ohio State 24/7s. I'm looking at Ohio State SB Nation articles. The one resounding thing, the duplicate across all articles. How will Ohio State stop Trevor Lawrence? So that's for me. It all runs through Trevor Lawrence, but that's how I attack Ohio State. I attack him with Trevor Lawrence to Amari. I attack him with Trevor Lawrence and running the football, and then I attack him with Travis Etienne, cleaning up and getting a ton of touchdowns in the end zone. You see number 9 in the end zone. You see number 16 with a bunch of rushing yards, and you see number 3 with a bunch of yards after catch. It's going to be a great day.
Well, look, I got to tell you, we have given Elliott a hard time on this show, but hey, if you remember what I was talking about a couple of weeks back, I think he does a good job in championship games and playoff games. And that I think he did a great job against Notre Dame. I think he called a great game against Notre Dame for the most part. I think he's going to do the same thing this time. I'm really hoping he's passing to set up the run. I mean, if you're ever going to pass to set up the run, now's the time, because Ohio State's pass defense is terrible. Okay, now's the time to do it. So feed the ball to those guys. Play action to Travis. I love play action. I don't think we use it enough. I just think that's what we need to do. Air it out, and then the holes will be there for Travis or Trevor. It doesn't really matter. I think the offense is going to be able to move the ball, and there's a lot of ways to do it. I like using the middle of the field. I'm still on that train for this game. I'd love to see, like Houston was mentioned earlier, I'd love to see Galloway and Davis get open, Davis Allen get open over the middle, up the seam or whatever. Love seeing the tight ends get involved. I'm a Green Bay fan. Green Bay used to do that all the time, and they absolutely murdered people with it. I just think they're such a weapon. If they can fake that block and then they just leak out there unbeknownst to the defense, it's a great way to make a living for sure. That's kind of where I think it's going. I think that's what they're going to do, and I hope to see a lot of points scored by the Clemson offense.
Yeah, I'll jump on that and echo a lot of what Alan said. I think the good thing, I know that we've always clamored for a go-get-it wide receiver, somebody who can go jump ball. But the one thing that this has created this year, especially, and this was evident in the ACC title game, is getting creative in the passing game. It's not, hey, we're just going to throw it up and hope that T catches it or Justin Ross catches it. Right. You have to get creative, and there's plenty of deep threats, plenty of deep balls, plenty of big plays that Clemson's been able to dial up this year, and I expect them to do the same. I think the thing that works in Clemson's favor with this Ohio State, as banged up and as bad as they are on their pass defense, is you can distribute to multiple wide receivers in multiple different ways, whether it's intermediate, long, deep routes across the middle of the field, short routes, Amari, Cornell, EJ, both of your tight ends. Who knows? Maybe even Brandon Spector gets involved with it a little bit more. Hopefully, I'm hoping he does turn into that Hunter Renfrow type, and maybe it starts with this game. You have a ton of targets that you can distribute the ball to, and like Alan said, pass to open up the run. If you're able to do that and keep them guessing, because I guarantee you they're going to sell out at the beginning of this game to make sure Travis and Trevor can't run the ball. But if you're able to throw on them, if the Clemson's able to throw on them, and then keep them guessing with who's getting it, whether it's your wide receivers, maybe some RPO concepts, and maybe even some passes to Travis to get him open in space, maybe a will route, the old 09 will route to CJ Spiller, get that going to Travis Etienne. He's done that a couple of times this year. I think Clemson's going to have a very good offensive night.
Big Mick gets in the chat and says that he agrees with Houston earlier in the night about the tight end getting involved. He thinks they're going to try to compensate for their poor secondary by playing zone, and that's going to leave the middle tight end open frequently. Another thing, statistically, Ohio State, 104th in the nation in pass defense. And that's passing yards allowed per game. So it doesn't matter how many games, per game. Clemson is 7th in the nation in passing offense. There's no other disparity like that between passing offense and defense on this team. So on this matchup. So the biggest problem is that Clemson is a great passing team, and Ohio State is not a very good pass defending team. And so I think that it'd be interesting to see how Trevor Lawrence does. I mentioned this to an Ohio State friend of mine. I said that it doesn't matter how many games you played or where you're ranked. Trevor Lawrence is going to be throwing bombs all over the field, and I think he will, considering what's on paper here. I want to see Trevor Lawrence, as Houston said, pass to start the run. But really, I think Trevor will run to start the run as well. So Trevor will pass to just pass and run to run. So you're not going to be able to stop Trevor Lawrence. I want to see him dominate and make his way towards another national championship game. Next up, on the flip side of that, is what can Clemson's defense do to stop this Ohio State offense? Now, Ohio State, I'll give you some ranks here on offense. 42nd in the nation in passing offense. 5th in the nation in rushing offense. And 7th in the nation in scoring offense. So starting with the rushing attack, they're a better rushing team than they are a passing team. And that is headed by the three-headed monster of Trey Sermon, Master Teague III, and Justin Fields. And with Trey Sermon, you're looking at the previous game, 331 yards, 2 touchdowns against Northwestern. And then Michigan State, 112 yards and 1 touchdown. Could this be the second coming of a J.K. Dobbins-type performance against Clemson? Ooh, ouch. 174 yards for Mr. Dobbins there. I don't think so, because I think J.K. Dobbins had a different skill set considerably in the passing game that Sermon and Teague do not have. But definitely something that I think Clemson's going to have to be ready for. And I think this Clemson defensive line, if you look at it with the upgrades of Miles Murphy and Brian Bresee and Tyler Davis being a year extra under his belt, I think, does nothing but benefit the Clemson Tigers. And I think that, like I said, Spector and Jones and Skalski is a little bit of an upgrade as far as run stopping, considering the last 3 guys that were in the linebacking core. So I'm going to say that Clemson has upgraded, will do better against the rush in this game. But as Walt mentioned, this game, Justin Fields is not going to be injured like he supposedly was last year with that knee problem. So what are your guys' thoughts? Do you start with stopping and shutting down the run and then everything else falls apart? Because that's what I think you got to do. I think they're so strong in the running game, you got to give that its due.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think they're going to do something very similar to what they did with Notre Dame. And that's, contain Fields, You don't want Fields getting out and beating you with his legs. That's something you don't want. That's something Ian Book did with us. The first time we played Notre Dame, a lot of that was due to the fact that the players we had missing, of course. But they're gonna want to get a push just enough to rattle him and make him get the ball off. But they're not gonna want him to run and escape that pocket. So I think they're gonna stop the run game, bring the linebackers in, blitz the linebackers like Venables always does. Similar thing. We're gonna want him to look through those players, the Garrett Wilsons of the world, the Olaves of the world, and say, hey, can I fit it in that window? We want Fields to be jarred back there. We want him to be confused. We want him to wonder just for a split second, can I fit it in that window or can I? And hopefully by that time, he's got too much pressure on him. Maybe he's on the ground. But they're going to want to put it on Fields and his arm for sure.
I'll say this. There's no running back on Ohio State's offense that matches what J.K. Dobbins struck in my heart last year. J.K. Dobbins is good, and you're seeing what he's able to do in the NFL. Like that cat can run. And look, Master Teague's good, but you saw last year when J.K. Dobbins was taken off the field, Master Teague could not match the output that J.K. Dobbins did. And then you're going to tell me Trey Sermon, a backup running back who could not beat Kennedy Brooks at Oklahoma, okay, is going to come in and run for 300, 200 yards on a Brent Venables defense. I have a hard time believing that. Now, they'll have moments where they're able to spring a run or, maybe Justin Fields is able to break contain. And if you can minimize those plays, then I think Clemson's defense will be fine. But I just don't see Ohio State having a big 77-yard run or 60-something yard run like J.K. Dobbins was able to just rip off at will last year in the first half of last year's game.
Yeah.
So I just don't see that this year.
But even with the ripping off of the big plays at the beginning, it is always what happens with Brent Venables' defenses. Slowly but surely starts to make small adjustments throughout the game to where the team that doesn't make any adjustments to that starts to slowly get chipped away at. They were up 16-0. This team lost. Okay, so even with those, I think, obviously with a better total yards, better time of possession, more first downs, Ohio State, and we have kind of nodded to this, guys. Last year's Ohio State team was probably better than Clemson. 9 times out of 10, they probably could have won out of 10 games, probably not the majority, but more than half. I would think the Ohio State team was better.
That's the majority.
Okay, so the Ohio State team would have probably won more than half those games. But I would say this year the Ohio State team is worse. So I think there's a lot of step backs on that secondary. There's a step back in the running back. So for me, I do feel like that Clemson has that touchdown. That touchdown Vegas point, the touchdown spread. I think that they have that, and justifiably so. Now, some people are saying that they could see Clemson winning. I'm seeing here on the chat 14, maybe 21 points. I don't know about that. It'd be hard for me to say that in a playoff game, but it's really a lot because you don't even know. You really don't. There is that unknown of a 6-game team. You really don't know a lot of their flaws. But you do know that they don't have a J.K. Dobbins again, and Clemson does have some improvements, especially on the defensive line. So that leads us into our final question of the night. And again, just ignore my math, okay? I never said I was good at math. And Alan, that's why you're on the show. Better be glad I'm not part of the voting or recounting of the votes over in Georgia, because who knows what kind of numbers would come out of my head. But all right, so last question of the night, and I want you guys to get in over on YouTube and Facebook. Who is the scariest player for Clemson, and who is the scariest player for Ohio State? So let's start with the first one here. The Ohio State player that should scare Clemson the most is, fill in the blank over on YouTube and Facebook, the Ohio State player that should scare Clemson the most is, and we'll start with you, Houston.
Chris Olave. I think Chris Olave is easily the scariest player, and if he has a big game, that's going to be another one of these nail biters. Justin Fields, very good. If he can find him and have time to get downfield, Chris Olave is that deep threat guy that Clemson does not want to have many opportunities. So I think Chris Olave is the scariest player for us.
Yeah, I hate to be that guy, but I agree.
Alan's
Sorry.
just trying to go home. He's just trying to go to bed.
I've been talking Olave up the whole show, so that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Yeah, I think Olave's the guy.
Chat's saying Fields. Chat's also saying the scariest thing's Morgan's math. Ooh, ouch. Sorry. That may be true. But that may be true. I'm going to put out here, just to be the sake of, just to be different, I'm going to put out here Trey Sermon. You know, he's had 2 games now, albeit Northwestern and Michigan State. So definitely, as Houston said earlier in the show, nowhere near the caliber of a Brent Venables defense. I don't think any of these teams that they've played this year has any caliber of what Brent Venables has. And it's seen 5 interceptions for Justin Fields and some of the most difficult teams he's played. I think that bodes well for Clemson. But scariest player, I'm going to say Trey Sermon, 331 yards in the championship game, 2 touchdowns. And Michigan State, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. My question is, though, will he be used in the passing game at all? Because these 2 guys don't have any receiving touchdowns rather, and they only have 12 receptions between both of them, Master Teague and Trey Sermon. So it's not the same as J.K. Dobbins. So Clemson's going to have to attack the running back in a different way if they're not going to be used in the passing game. And if they're not going to be used in the passing game, I think that hurts Ohio State, because J.K. Dobbins on 3rd down in the flats was lethal in the first game in the previous game in 2019. So I'm curious to see what Trey Sermon will do. I don't want to see that guy have a huge game, because if he does, then that means that there's some other issues going on as well. Clemson's not able to adjust to him or even stop him. That opens up a lot more for Justin Fields. But chat's also saying Fields, Olave as well. So guys agreeing with you, but I just wanted to throw out some other names there. All right, now let's flip it on the flip. Let's do it on the flip side here. Let's flip it over. We'll say, or however we should flip it. We'll say, what is the Clemson player what Clemson player should scare Ohio State the most? I'll start with Alan on this one.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you started with me, because I get the easy answer. It's Trevor Lawrence, right? I mean, Trevor Lawrence can do it all. I mean, he's gonna find holes in that defense to pass the ball. He's gonna pull the ball from Etienne and run like crazy. I mean, this guy is the X factor. He is, by the way, the should-be Heisman winner here coming up in a week or so. But we all don't think that's gonna happen. His odds are not very good. But the fact of the matter is, he's the best player in college football. I don't really care what the Heisman says. So. Another couple things I do want to mention, since this is the last question, even though this is not technically the question, something I do want to mention is I would watch out for some players in this game. And when I say watch out for some players, I mean linebackers not named James Skalski. Okay? I think they have a huge potential to impact this game, specifically Balin Spector and Trenton Simpson. I love Trenton Simpson when he is brought in. I love the way they use him to blitz the quarterback with his freaky athleticism. I think he's kind of a sneaky pick for this game. You know, Mike Jones, of course, is in there as well, but I really like what Trenton Simpson brings to the table athleticism-wise. I know he's got some assignment football. He's got to grow up a little bit at that position. He's going to do that, and he's going to be an incredible linebacker for Clemson in the future.
Is it my turn? Am I allowed to say this? Okay. I'm going to put this as a collective.
Oh, no.
Yes, I can.
No.
Yes, I can.
No.
Yes, I can. I'm the Big Ten. I'm going to make this a collective answer. All right. I'm the Big Ten. All right. We're playing a Big Ten team. We can change the rules. All right. Let's say Clemson's freshmen will impact this game. They'll be the scariest players that no one's talking about. E.J. Williams on the offensive side of the ball. And on the defensive side of the ball, the trio of Trenton Simpson, Miles Murphy, and Brian Brzee. This is the big time right here, and I think it's the big show for them. I expect them all to have some big games, and I think by the time we get to next week, on our show next week, we'll be talking about how Miles Murphy and Brian Brzee ate Justin Fields for lunch.
And, you know, I hate to do it, but it's not as bad as picking a collective, but I'm going to go with Allen here because I think that with Trevor Lawrence showing what he can do in his return against Notre Dame, and knowing that Trevor Lawrence is maybe one of his final games, and probably not his final game in my opinion, but his last time in the playoffs, his last playoff run with the Clemson Tigers, he'll be going to the NFL after this. We know he'll be going to Jacksonville after this based on how bad the Jets are. at losing. They're terrible at also losing. But I think that Trevor Lawrence was able to show that he could win the game running the ball in 2019. He could control the game. He's great under pressure. How many times have you seen Trevor Lawrence release a football almost being sacked right where the guy needed to be, right where the ball needed to be for the wide receiver? And I think he's going to continue to do that. Trevor is great at avoiding sacks without having to scramble. He's great at rolling out when he needs to, even rolling out to the opposite side. And he is also great at running the ball and opening up the run in order to help Travis Etienne out. I see people saying in Travis Etienne in the chat. I would love to see Travis Etienne do great in his final season with the Clemson Tigers as well. But I think with the way the offensive line is and the struggles that Clemson has and the strategy that Clemson has to use, it is paramount that Trevor Lawrence run the ball well and frequently and is able to move the chains with his feet so that number 9 can do the same as well. And so I look for, as Alan said, Trevor Lawrence to dominate. And really, if you didn't vote for Trevor Lawrence in the Heisman, shame on you. But I think I kind of already know because he was third team AP All-American, which, we won't even go there. That's a whole nother hour conversation about how disgusting that is. But Trevor Lawrence, I don't think is going to win the Heisman. But I think after the game Friday, you're going to have a lot of writers say, oh no, can I maybe go get my ballot back and change my vote because I've screwed it up again because for whatever reason I have it out against a Clemson player and it's all about stats and it's not about the actual best player. I think Friday night, late, I think into Saturday morning, early, the wee hours, everyone in the nation will know and see how great Trevor Lawrence is and how stupid they were for not voting him as the Heisman because I don't believe he won it. But I will say that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the key and he is going to dominate, and I look to see Clemson winning. So, final predictions before we go. That's the end of the show. My prediction for Clemson is to win. I think it's going to be at around 10 points or so. I don't think it's going to be have to come from behind anymore. I think that Clemson does not gets the lead and does not lose the lead in this game.
Yeah, Clemson 41-20.
I'm going to say it's a similar score to the ACC championship game. I think Notre Dame was a better team, but I think you might see Ohio State score some more garbage points at the end. I think Clemson wins this one 38-17.
Well, another great show, guys. Alan, Houston, thank you so much for joining me again and letting me and being a part. Let me rope you in on this wild ride that we've had. Getting close to the end of the 2020 season. I'd love to see 2020 go away and let's get started with 2021. Hopefully not all this controversy that's going on, especially with schedules. But man, we maxed out, I think, almost 90 total viewers on Facebook and YouTube. So let's give a golf clap to our Facebook users out there. Thank you guys so much over there. I appreciate it. We always get more viewers when the postseason comes around, and that's why it's so important to make sure you like and share the video with your friends. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hey, the rest of the week, not only do you have a lot of media days with the players. Tony Elliott's up next tomorrow with the players. And you've got a couple of things throughout the week. Go check out TigerNet and Clemson Sports Talk, all those great websites out there, the Clemson Insider. But also, don't forget to check out some of our shows that are some of our friends' shows. We've got Ellis Tolbert on Tuesday night, Mark Childress Wednesday, and then Terrence Oglesby does his basketball fix. I know Bill's over here talking about what about the men's basketball team? Well, Terrence Oglesby gives you the super in-depth stuff over on Thursday nights. Check it out, Facebook and YouTube, those shows as well. Again, thank you so much to all our sponsors and our fans out there. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.